Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming, everyone. This is the third commoning workshop that we've done or we're doing. It's the first online one. We just wanted to do it online so that we can get like a lot of people who are not based in England be able to join and understand what we're trying to do in Sheffield. We're like really lucky to have a number of really cool speakers joining us to like share some of their insights about commons and land justice and property. So it's super exciting. We have a little bit of a packed schedule, but I hope it's okay because it'll be good quality stuff. And then off the back of that, we can start to sort of build ideas around the types of projects we want to be doing in Sheffield. So in general, just a rundown of the day. We're going to start, Bia and I will introduce EASA Commons and EASA in general to people who don't know about it. We'll try and keep it brief for all of the people who are already members of EASA. And then we'll move into first a talk from Cordelia from Shared Assets, I see you there, who's going to be talking about commons in relation to land justice movements in the UK. And then we will hear from Robin from 3 Acres and a Cow, who will talk to us specifically about places in Sheffield that you can see these sorts of issues manifest. And then Lucia will explain, Lucia from EASA Commons will explain the sort of workshop framework and how we want to develop the projects over the next few months. And then I'm doing it all from memory. I should just have it on a list in front of me. I don't know, I'm just trying to freestyle this. And then we have Nick Blomley joining us from Canada. That's why it's a little further down the schedule, because it's like going to be like 8 a.m. for him. So he's going to join us to explain. He does like a nice sort of accessible introduction to property. And then we will introduce, there's maybe some people already on the call, but we're going to have this hour to introduce, in the final hour to introduce the potential community partners in Sheffield that we've been in communication with over the past few weeks, who we hope to build proposals with. So EASA tutors can develop ideas for projects and workshops that respond directly to these community groups' needs. So super excited about that. Don't know, it might be a bit more freeform, the end bit, but it'll just generally be about like seeing people's faces and getting to know the sort of work they're doing in Sheffield already and how we might be able to work together. So I think that's an okay introduction. Now we have like more people on the call, it looks good. So shall I hand over to Bia well, both of us are going to do like a little intro thing. So here we go.
Yeah. Let me just share screen and stuff. Oh, can you enable screen share?
Oh, I knew I would do that immediately. Okay.
Cool. Okay. Let me try put this full screen and then if it goes away from. Oh, 1 second.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. I know what it is. Okay, now it should be fine. Now you can see that, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Let me minimize this. You can't see my like Zoom people.
Oh. No, it's perfect. We just see you on the screen.
Okay.
So take it away.
That's good. EASA Commons. So like Joe said, we're just going to give a brief introduction into what EASA is, just for some people who may not be aware and some new people as well. And then Joe will kind of run through our aims later on. But So yeah, EASA, who are we? EASA is Europe's longest running decentralized architectural education system. So EASA reforms annually every year, and this has been going on for 40 years. It gives countries in Europe an opportunity to host an international audience of architecture students at these events, which are always at the cutting edge of architectural discourse. EASA is organized around assemblies. Each year, a different country within the EASA network hosts the main 2-week-long summer residency, with smaller events most recently happening around countries as well. As a result of the pandemic, we've seen EASA become more fragmented, with many countries taking this time to organize locally within their context, which has been a really great opportunity to sort of enforce the national team. But EASA Commons views this event as a way to bring back that post-pandemic scale and come back in full force with a 500-person event. So an event with 500 international participants, which will consist of around 35 workshops, each workshop with different outputs, but workshops which comprise of a diverse array of activities, including construction projects, public artworks, discussions, publications, performances, sculptures, and installations. So as we know, EASA, it is a catalyst. It is about building together. It is about living together. So as those are the 3 cornerstones of EASA, we bring that forward into EASA Commons as well. But we also want to acknowledge the array of workshops and knowledge which exists within the EASA community, both built larger workshops, but also performance, theoretical, explorative workshops. And we want these events to be able to enable participants to explore alternative forms of architectural education. The premise of EASA is that the students take on the delivery of this education. Like I said, we have this diverse network with an intense body of knowledge, and this collective body of knowledge is what holds EASA as a network together. The main intensive period of creation will see participants living, working, and eating together in an event that sits somewhere between a festival and a residency. And these are just some examples of previous EASA workshops that we've had before. Like I said, some theory, some built large-scale workshops, and some more sort of commentary on social issues as of recent. And then sort of our ambition. So EASA has existed for over 40 years, like I previously mentioned, hosting over thousands of workshops. And at this point, we want to sort of start thinking about how our organization is going to evolve. How can we reimagine EASA's life and how we can reformat that into this assembly that we have every year. So could the enormous creative potential of EASA be used as a catalyst for greater social change? So looking at the EASA event at the top of this timeline is the very traditional internal bid, the meeting of the tutors, and then the EASA event, us at Commons, we decided we wanted to sort of shift this idea and start to bring a few extra layers of what EASA can be. Our bids started very fluid and open as a collaboration of many teams. The Commoning Workshops, which was all about building a knowledge base and sort of building interactions within a local context, but also within our community. And then the EASA event, which is sort of this 2-week intense period, but also can become something larger if a tutor sees fit. And then obviously an ongoing projects. And this will be explained a little bit more by Lucia when she explains the sort of format of the tutor meeting. So, like I said, what is it if we begin to reimagine EASA through a Commoning lens by viewing events not as a temporary thing, but several stages in an ongoing project? All events can build towards social projects with more impact.
Cool.
To you, Joe.
Is this where I take over?
Yeah, that's where you take over.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we're going to give you a summary of how we came to our ideas, why we wanted to bid to host this event in the first place, and how we think it fits in with the wider ambitions for the EASA network, as Bia said, after existing for 40 years now. So our proposal is to introduce new ideas and a new social layer around what EASA does. Why? We want to tangibly change the world for the better, using new models of distributed organizations in a way that is both long-lasting and profoundly different. EASA is a format with an open mind, engaging at the intersection of education, practice, and practical implementation of new ideas. We're building on a thread of ideas that we feel we can track through the past 5 years of events that EASA have been hosting. What I mean by this is and move away from only sort of like creating temporary pavilion-like interventions towards a longer, like an idea that we can have like an actual impact in the place that we are, and to do projects that are more real and more tangible, and maybe sometimes like it would be about like helping to repair something, like helping to create a new community infrastructure, like something that's a bit more sort of like real and tangible. So we want to bring that sort of more into the mix, as well as like having space for experimentation and sort of art and ideas and performance. Yeah, we've been starting to, so like around the idea of commons, like that we chose this kind of as commons is like a sort of one of the many solutions. It kind of plays on this like mythologized English past commons of like a land that is everyone has free access to. But we're really wanting to talk about sort of ideas around property, land justice, and the sort of wider systems that dictate how we practice architecture today. So I've been starting to share some of this stuff in little bites on Instagram. Hopefully, maybe some of you have had a chance to engage with those, or like read a little bit more, follow each of those threads. But we think that property is the most important subject in architecture right now, and that it's something that should be foundational to a study of architecture. It's particularly urgent and obvious in the context of UK and Ireland, in a housing crisis where developers have all the power to build housing and all the land, yet intentionally build a tiny amount in order to sustain the demand and therefore the value of their properties. So we see ourselves as one player in a wider system that's about like extraction of profit from land often. So a lot of developers in places like Sheffield actually buy up and sit on cheap land in a practice called land banking, in order to maximize the profits they can make on the site in the future. So they might sort of see it decay for 10 years and then use the decay of the building as a way of validating the demolition of it and sort of building of like large student accommodation blocks, for example. Yeah, an understanding of this context is seemingly completely omitted from our educations. And in fact, many universities in the UK are like partially funded by practices involved in these sorts of projects. And they are sort of held to this one structure, which is about like the RIBA, like having an RIBA qualification. So they can't really stray too far from the way that architecture is normally practiced now. Yeah, and they present these modes of development as the singular truth of how the world of architecture is. There's this sort of false binary of like your ideas about a better world can exist in universities, but when you get out of the university now, you have to like work. So we use commons to then begin to frame new conceptions of property and development, not generated by wealthy landholders, but instead by different kinds of stakeholders who wouldn't normally have agency or ownership over architecture. Hence our plans to work alongside community groups and organisations that have already established roots in Sheffield. Our personal position is that a lot of problems in architecture and the climate crisis have emerged from the absolute control private developers have over our cities. But that doesn't mean we are dismissing private and public ownership models or saying that they're bad. It would be great to understand different perspectives from across Europe. And we'd like EASA Commons, the event, to be a place for bringing together all of these different perspectives to discuss property and bring that to the fore of the conversation, instead of sort of talking about the the end product architecture in isolation. We also want it to be a way of showcasing ways of doing social architecture. So about like bottom-up methods of producing architecture that are about establishing the needs of people first and then building architectural proposals around that. And we think that Sheffield, a post-industrial city, that's undergone significant regeneration efforts at the hands of private development, often on ex-public council-owned land, is an ideal location to explore these ideas. So we want to give you the tools and access to the people in Sheffield to fully engage with this topic, with the ambition to actualize the social potential of the EASA workshop.
Thanks, Joe.
Sorry, I realized that you were meant to like hop in at some point there, but
it's all right. You did a great job. And I guess I'll just briefly touch on Commoning Workshop that we actually previously held in Sheffield in person. It was a small enough event, roughly around like 10 to 20 of us at any given moment. But it was really insightful and helped us sort of ourselves as organizers understand the context which we were proposing these ideas in, and come together with some like people who are very knowledgeable about Sheffield and sort of shared that knowledge and that history with us really well. And it was a great opportunity to sort of look around this main area which we will be sort of centered in, which is Castlegate, and understand the history and the context of what land justice and property rights are like there. And then also start building connections with existing community groups that were already working within Sheffield and sort of like adopting these methods of decentralized organizations like EASA is, and start understanding what the appetite for what it is that we can sort of engage with when we come to Sheffield. And then I think we can end on this sort of very first image that was produced by our team, which was this idea of the Commons House. So this idea that we could come together to sort of use EASA infrastructure and these things which we're so familiar with within our organization, which help us come together as a community for those 2 weeks. Things like our info point and our kitchen and shared communal spaces for building and thinking and just interacting with each other, which we create within this intense 2 weeks, but to us as people who have experienced it, understanding how important it is in your everyday life to have spaces like this. So the idea of the Commons House always was kind of like at the forefront of our thinking when organizing this event, as sort of understanding what it is that EASA can actually bring to a space that's trying to maybe reinvent itself or trying to create some sort of grassroots and bottom-up approach to thinking about property, thinking about land, and thinking about how we use that space. And then, of course, linking that all back into architectural education and thinking about what it's like to interact with not just a developer, but somebody whose needs and stake isn't always at the forefront when it comes to architecture. And just like sort of, there's a great drawing, and it was kind of like the start of all of this, and it's developed into something much bigger, but also much more interesting, I think. And that's it. And I guess it this image speaks to like our initial ambition. Well, it's still our ambition is to like find a piece of land and like make that mental leap from thinking about ourselves as a dispersed organization without any, we have a few assets, like we have a toolbox, for example, of like power tools that moves from country to country, but like thinking about ourselves like in this reality of a world where assets are like valued, how can we create our own assets and use the asset as a tool to be able to, I don't know, grow as an organization and start to practice architecture in new ways. So, and it's an idea that's been, like Joe mentioned, it's a thread which has been going on for the past 5 years. EASA, it's an idea that's not our own idea, but it's an idea of the collective body that is EASA. It's something that reality sort of brought into the forefront with the Ridealgh app, thinking about what is the potential of the EASA workshop that doesn't get selected for those 2 weeks? How can we give space for these ideas, which we have so many of, to actually happen when the event isn't happening? And it's it's definitely something that's becoming an ongoing theme in EASA. It's like, okay, when the event ends, what can we do then? What happens after? So I guess in some ways this was our response to that afterlife or afterthought, or what we do once those 2 weeks are over. And I guess for a lot of us, it's what we focus on, especially towards the end of experiencing EASA, once you've been for a couple of years and you want to do something, you want to take that next step. So this is kind of us approaching that next step into architectural practice and starting to think about how that could work.
Yeah, and we've already sort of tried to establish the infrastructure to enable longer term projects to happen out of EASA Commons. So we have now got a community interest company, and I don't know, we've been applying for like pots of money specifically about like creating social impact in Sheffield. So we hope to like get access to money to be able to like actually properly do these projects. And this is the point now. We're saying this is the time to introduce like lots of potential tutors and workshop leaders to the project. Like it's a launch sort of event for it, because we think that like in order to create projects that are more interesting and have more impact, we need to sort of be thinking about it several months in advance and allow like tutors to be able to find their own money pots as well, and to enter into like an understanding of how this sort of architecture can be produced, and not just for it to be us facilitating. I think, was there anything else to add? So Lucia will actually talk in more detail about the framework of the workshop structure, and the like different strands of types of workshop we think might happen, and the timelines for those, and the specific categories of types of people that we are creating a sort of database of, that you'll be able to read through and understand, like if you want to like work directly with a group, for example, or to like work with a local artist, like co-create a workshop with them, or whether you would want to just sort of draw on existing knowledge of Sheffield and technical knowledge as well. So Lucia will run through that in more detail later, but maybe that's it from our intro.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
I forgot how like weird like Zoom vibe things